Hey everyone, welcome back to NDC, and we're doing another developer tutorial today. So link in the description below if you do want to follow along, but otherwise we're going to be handling working with relationships. Now last time we built our full CRUD, create, update, and delete data, letting users create, update, and delete data using SwiftUI and SwiftUI's environment tools. And today we're taking a next big step, which is going to be that working with relationships for our data models. That means connecting things like friends and their favorite movies and building real world app logic that reflects how people and data relate. We'll use SwiftUI's relationship to link models together, update our UI to reflect those links, and give users the power to manage complex data, all from SwiftUI. Now you can go ahead and open up your previous project, or you can download the project files right from the website as well. So in Xcode, let's go ahead and open up our friend's favorite movies file. All right, in section 1, we're going to be adding a relationship. So now that our app handles both friends and movie data independently, let's go ahead and even open up our preview just to kind of see what we were working with last time. But today we're going to be linking them to make friends' favorite movies live up to its name. So essentially, we're going to be adding some different properties that can relate to one another. Real quick, let's take a look at our previous example. We could add and edit friends. When we click on the friends, we could see the detail. We can even edit the name here. Then we go back, we can see that it got reflected. Same thing with the movies, and we're actually able to change the date and time. But this time we're going to be actually displaying the friends' actual favorite movies. So maybe for Rich, we can see that they absolutely loved, I don't know, Reckless Train Ride 2. The preview can be a little bit weird here. So we're going to be making this app live up to its name. Okay, we're going to be returning, I'm just going to minimize this a little bit more. We're going to be returning to our friends class here. And we're going to add a favorite movie property of the type movie, and we're going to be using our question mark. If you remember correctly, question mark is being used for optionals, right? So it's something that may exist or may not exist. So we're going to do movie question mark. You know, we might have a friend that we've recently added to the program, and they might not have any movies favorited quite yet. So optional is going to be our backup and make sure that we're going to be allowing our model to represent friends who don't have favorite movies yet. All right, in step 3, we're going to create a property in movie for the inverse of the relationship. Okay, so we're going to also be assigning our movies with some friends, and we're going to be doing so with a list. We're going to do another variable here, and we're going to call it favorite. Oh, favorited by, okay, this makes sense. So we're going to be creating a list of friends who have favorited this movie. Now we're also going to be adding the empty brackets here as well. And the reason we're storing this in an array or list is because, you know, a lot of the friends can have the same favorite movie. So we're essentially establishing a two-way relationship. One movie can be favorited by multiple friends, and we can create the appropriate type of relationship by choosing between an array or a single value for each property, enabling us to create one-to-one or one-to-many relationships, which is pretty cool. Now we're going to go to our sample data Swift file here on the left. So in our sample data, we're going to establish some relationships between the sample friends and movies. Wonderful. So we need to find our context of inserting. Go ahead and scroll down here. All right, so we want to go under our for movie. And we're going to create some friend sample data. So let's go ahead and establish that friend.sample data. And then we're going to assign them a number within the array. So for the first one, we can do 0. And we'll do dot favorite movie. And we'll have this equal the movie with a capital M dot sample data. And then we're going to assign the number 1 within that array. And this is pretty interesting because as we can see here in the example it's having us do, and you can feel free to add as many of these as you'd like. For the sample data, we're going to be assigning these different numbers within the array here. And we'll have our favorite movie equals movie dot sample data. And then let's pass in a number of 0. So as we can see in our note, when we set the value of a property at one end of a relationship, so in this case the favorite movie, SwiftData is going to automatically update the corresponding property on the other end. So in this case, our favorited by for us. And we can choose which of the two properties we do want to set. That's pretty cool. So it's going to kind of handle, if we input one end of it, it's going to also automatically handle the other end of the relationship if it's a two-way relationship, which is really cool. And then just to save some time, I'm just going to copy and paste the other friends in here, but you can feel free to type them out. And let's go ahead and move on to section 2, where we're going to edit the relationship with a picker. So now that our data models have that relationship, we're going to be using the picker to allow people to select a favorite movie. Okay, so we're going to be navigating to our friend detail here, and we're going to add a picker to choose the favorite movie. You can do a bunch of different styles for the picker. Default's actually usually pretty good, but we can talk about those in just a moment. So where we have our text field of name and our autocorrection disabled, we're also then going to be adding a picker. So still within our form, we're going to add a picker, and we're going to establish the text with it. And if you want to use the object library for placeholders, feel free to do so. So we'd be grabbing this one here. Let's go ahead and establish a fave movie. And then we'll add a selection. And this is going to need to be a binding variable. So we're going to use our $sign. And then we're going to establish this to be for the friend. And then we're going to use the .favorite movie property, which we've already previously set up in our data modeling. We'll then need to add braces at the end of our picker here. We can see that our error has gone away. We can see here that it is telling us that we can augment this with the picker style modifier. So if we go outside of the picker braces and do picker style, we can use our dot notation to kind of see what options we have. We even have automatic, which should help us based on the context, but we can see that we have lots of different options. We even have something like the wheel, which if we kind of enlarge our UI, we can kind of see here that we have kind of like those like scrollable wheels. We don't have any options populated in here yet. We can see that the gray would probably be highlighting which one we are selecting. So you can play around with these if you'd like. I really like the inline and this segmented, but different UIs and different styles are going to require different pickers, and you can do that with whatever design choice you'd like. So maybe what we'll do is actually we'll put the picker style to automatic, and we can see what SwiftUI actually suggests that we do. But, you know, we can change it later. So in step 2, to show the list of movies we can choose from, we can use a query just as we did in the movie list. So in our preview on our friend detail, let's go ahead and add a .model container. And we're going to do our sample data, and we have to make it .shared as we remember from last time. We're going to reference that model container. So this is going to allow us within those previews to ensure that it can access our model context just fine. And then we're going to be importing SwiftData. Go to the top of our file here, under importing SwiftUI, import SwiftData, and then we're going to add a query in order to view and fetch the movies from the data store. Now, if you're like me and you're working with the kind of window side by side, it doesn't usually always show you the entire code snippet to save space. So we are going to be adding our query, and we're going to be doing this under the environment. So to add a query, we're going to do @query with a capital Q. And then within the brackets, we can even sort it. So we're going to do the sort with a colon, and then we're going to add our /, and we're going to be sorting this by movie title. So let's go ahead and reference our class of movie and the title property with the dot. We'll then create a private variable, private var, and we'll call it movies because these are kind of like the list of movies that we want to reference. And we're going to establish that as an array of capital M movie. This is going to search and sort all of our movie titles and then pass it back to us, and we can use it to be displaying this within a list. And because we're kind of going through each of those movies, we're going to be using a for each, just like we've done before with lists. So within our picker here, let's go ahead and establish for each movies, because that's what we had called this private variable up here. We're going to add our brace, and we'll go ahead and say movie in. And we'll display each of these with text, and we'll display these as a lowercase movie, just like we did here. And then we're going to reference the title. Okay, let's go ahead and open back up our preview here. And now when we click on the picker, we should be able to actually see this with an ordered and sorted list of movies. So if we click on the fave movie, oh, you know what? I think I only did one portion of the thing. If we go back down to our preview, yeah, I forgot we had the two different previews here. Okay, so after the first navigation stack, we'll also want to add that model container for sample data.shared.model container. Sorry about that. Okay, so now in both of our views, so let's go ahead and expand this. Okay, now we can see the picker here, and it does look to be sorted. And when we go to either the friend detail of, this, or adding a new friend, which we still have pinned in our preview here, we can select them. Now, currently, when we select them, let's say we do difficult cat, we're not like kind of saving what's being selected, and we're not displaying that information anywhere, right? So if I even click on glamorous neighbor, right, we should see this little check mark next to it. This is also a good time, if you want to actually check out the different types of pickers. So within our picker style, if you want to check out the wheel, we can see here, it even makes like a little clicking noise. Again, the current issue is whenever we're selecting something, it's kind of bouncing back to the one on the top. We can even see in the experiment, we can't change the selected value. So in step 5, we're going to be establishing and tagging what we're selecting with a compatible value. So after our for each here, where were we? Okay, we're right here. And the text, we're going to then add a tag, and we're going to be tagging this as a movie value. Now we can see when we do select these different options, it's kind of being tagged and almost like saved that, okay, this is their favorite movie, Glamorous Neighbor, Reckless Train Ride, and it's no longer bouncing back to the option at the top. Wonderful. So if you're ever wondering how do I kind of like save those options, using the tag is going to be your best bet there. In step 6, in order to allow people to have no favorite movie, we're going to be adding a choice. And for this one, we're going to be making it none. What we need to do is for our for each movies, let's go ahead and make some space above it. We're going to be adding our own kind of like option to the picker, which is going to be the text of none. And then we're going to be adding a tag to that. And we're going to be saying nil, but not just nil, because nil can refer to an optional of any type. We need to basically say, okay, I want it to be stored as nothing, but as this specific type. So we can actually use the keyword as and then movie with a question mark, right? Because if we just say nil, it can't really communicate that back and forth, right? So we're basically saying it's nil, but as the type of movie, which is also why we made it an optional value. So now we can see in our picker here, and I actually got, the wheel on this one's kind of growing on me. We can see that we have the option of none. It should stay there. Sometimes your preview will refresh like mine just did and bounce back. But yeah, now we have the option to save it as nothing, and we're tagging it appropriately. Now in section 3, we're going to be displaying a relationship with a list. So we can see in our little picture here, we're going to be able to look at the movie and see who has favorited each one. So we're going to be navigating over to our detail view, and we're going to add a third item to our form here. So let's find our form. It's kind of near the top, line 25 for me. We have a text field, date picker, and now we're going to make a little bit of space, and we're going to create a section. Now sections are pretty cool because they allow us to really visually separate things within a form. So if you're creating like a settings sheet, you might want to have like user settings or notification preferences, sound, etc. And you can actually separate those all via sections. So when we kind of populate it here, you'll kind of see what I mean. So we'll do favorited by, we're going to add our brace to add this section here. And now let's go ahead and expand that preview a little bit. I know not always working with the most space. We can kind of see that we have this gray text title here, and that's going to be telling our users you are in another section. So let's add a for each. And within here, we're going to be doing it for the movie.favorited by, add a brace, and we'll say friend in, and then we're going to display those with text. So we'll do the friend.name. All right, let's take a look at it now. We can see that we are favorited by Mayuri and Rhodey for the Amusing Space Traveler 3. Just as a tip, you can also use these sections in lists and pickers as well. So in your pickers, if you had them even sorted by action movie, comedy movie, you can actually use those sections to properly space those and like categorize those out. Same thing with lists, groceries, car parts. I don't know where you're going to buy both of those things, maybe Amazon. But you know what I mean. That can be very helpful when you are creating more interactive or varied lists. Okay, we're going to navigate still within our movie detail, and under our date picker and before our section, we're going to be handling the cases where what if nobody has favorited these movies. So before our section, we're going to be creating an if statement, and something you might even want to do is right click on the section here and we can embed it. Right click, embed. We're making sure that when we do add our if statement, it's wrapping up that section perfectly. We'll say if exclamation point movie. So we're going to be looking for the opposite here. So if the movie dot favorited by dot is empty, then we're going to be showing this. Otherwise, in any other condition where it actually is empty, so when that condition is true, we will not be seeing the favorited by option. So it wants us to test this code by switching to movie list and choosing a movie that has no friends who have favorited said movie. I don't even know which ones that might be. Okay, so Rich likes that one. Okay, so for the Reckless Train Ride 2, nobody likes that movie. And we can see here that it's not being displayed whatsoever. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to be moving back to our movie detail. And in step 3, we need to basically say if the list has more than one friend, that the order changes from time to time. So let's see, Rhodey's on the bottom here. Let's tab back and forth. And Rhodey is on top. Absolutely. So we need to definitely be sorting these things. We're going to add a computed property to our view. So that means above our variable body sum view, but outside of this initiation here, we need to create a sorted friends list. So we'll call this one sorted friends, which is going to be a list of the friend class. We're then going to add our brace, and we're going to have our movie.favorited by. Great. And in the for each view, we should replace the reference with the new property. So let's scroll back down to our section favorited by, and instead of the movie.favorited by, this is going to now be our sorted friends. So sorted friends. Perfect. And let's double check that that works and refresh our preview. Wonderful. And we'll just make sure that Rhodey doesn't appear on top again because it's going to be sorted. Look at that. All right, step 5 in our computed property. So we're going to go back to our sorted friends here. So we're actually going to be changing how we are sorting our kind of movies and friends. So in our computed property, following the movie favorited by, we're going to add another property and we're going to do the dot sorted. And we're going to be selecting the sorted by and inserting it into our code. And this is going to replace our code with the placeholder. We're then going to be pressing return on this placeholder one more time. And we can see we now have the correct option with the trailing closure. So it has two friends it wants us to compare here. And it also wants us to add some code. So we're going to be using this to represent the kind of two friends in the array. And if we return true, if the first comes before the second, and false otherwise. So if we scroll down to step 6, we can see that it wants us to replace these placeholders with first. So the first friend and then the second representing the second friend. And then we're going to be grabbing the first dot name, which is the property that we have for all our friends. We're going to be saying this is less than the second dot name. Okay, we're now going to be filtering the movies with a custom query. So if there are a ton of movies, people might want to search for the specific titles. I wonder if this means we'll add the search function to our list, which I know a lot of people definitely are looking to do with a lot of their kind of applications. So we're going to be navigating over to our movie list Swift file here, and we're going to be adding an initializer. So let's scroll to the top here, and under our new movie, but still before our variable body sum view, we're going to be adding an initiator. And from here, we're going to be adding the title filter, which is going to be a string value. And that's going to equal, just for now, a blank string. We'll then add our brace. So we need to provide it with a default value because this will avoid us having to fix all our existing calls to the movie list initializer. Just as a note, we can use a custom view initializer when we need extra control over how special properties such as queries are set up when the view is created. Within our initializer here, we're going to create a let, and we're going to call this one predicate equals, and then we're going to reference the predicate macro. So we're going to be using the hashtag or ampersand symbol for that, capital P predicate. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get rid of the autofill options here. And we're going to be adding our kind of angled brackets. And within those angled brackets, we're going to be adding the movie. And we can see here, we even have a link to predicate. If we do want to learn a little bit more. And, there is some overview and some options here. So if you do want to learn more about predicate, feel free to check out that link. Otherwise, we're essentially establishing some conditions. When we're returning true from the predicate, that's basically saying we want to see those things. So we want to see those movies. So the way we can do that is we can do our movie in, and then we're going to go ahead and just use the true keyword. Okay, cool. And then we're going to, in step 3, initialize the underscore movies property. And we're going to be establishing a query with this. We're going to be using our filter this time. Instead of sort, we're going to do predicate. Then we're going to be adding our sort, and then that's going to be the movie.title. So just as a note, state and bindable, as well as environment, work in a similar way to query, creating a hidden property prefixed with an underscore. So we can see here the underscore movies, and this attaches to the view engine that powers SwiftUI. We have an example here. The hidden logic in state property automatically updates a view whenever a property changes. So if we have a variable, with the dice rollers and, counting how many times we've rolled the dice, it's going to automatically update the view whenever those values change. So same with the query. All right, and then step 4, because we're using its initializer to create a query, we can actually remove the sort parameter from the movies property declaration. So if we go to our structure here in our movies list, and we have our query, and we have our sort here, we can actually just go ahead and get rid of it because we're doing it within that initializer. So we'll just have an @query private var movies movie. In our predicate, we're going to replace this true value here, and we're going to be replacing it with a title filter. So title filter dot is empty, and we're going to be using the double. So you can see above the return here, it's usually your kind of /. If you hold shift and you do that twice, the kind of double line, which represents the logical operator for or. So if we add the movie .title .localized standard contains title filter, we can basically say, include the movie if the title filter is empty, or if the title movies contains the text in the filter. Just as a note, anything that has like predicates can't contain any arbitrary code. So that's why we're using the localized standard contains method, because it's going to search for one string inside of another, also while ignoring cases and also handling any intentional text features like accented characters. So if something has like, French accents, etc., etc. So this is something that's actually very useful. All right. And in step 6, I can see already in section 5, add a search bar. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. To make sure our filter works, we're going to be adding a second preview to pass a value for the filter. Gotcha. Okay, so let's go down here, and where our preview is, we can just add another one before or after. So hashtag preview. Let's go ahead and give it a name. We'll call this one filtered. Add a brace, and we'll say movie list title filter, and let's have this be TR. So there should be something in here with TR, which I think is electrifying trick, but we'll see how this pans out. And we'll do the .model container, and this is going to be, once again, our sample data .shared .model container. Okay, so we're essentially creating a preview that's going to be looking for any titles with TR, and we should only see those within our movie list. So we press on this. Okay, well, there's actually quite a few with TR. Train ride, yeah, that definitely has TR, and traveler. Currently we're doing this through a preview, but it's not like the best method. And as I've been waiting for, section 5, adding a search bar is definitely going to solve that issue. We can see here with the preview what the kind of logic is. It's going to be searching within those strings and anywhere within those strings, not just at the beginning, for something that contains TR together, just like we've specified, right? We can even like filter this down a little bit more. So if we only want to see any movies that contain train, we're looking for that condition of train, and we can see here that only one of those movies satisfies those conditions. Finally, section 5, adding a search bar. Let's go. I'm excited. So I'm skipping all the text. I just want to get this search bar implemented. No, I'm kidding. So essentially we're going to be creating a new view that will work to display the filtered list of movies when someone begins typing within the search bar. Okay, so we're going to be creating a SwiftUI view, and we're going to call it filtered movie list. So let's right click or use the plus button, new file from template, and this is going to be a SwiftUI view, filtered movie list. I'm going to get rid of our placeholder here, and we're going to reference our movie list with the empty brackets. You can see here we have our movies, and we're already pro at adding this in our previews. We don't even need the text to tell us what to do. We're going to be adding the dot model container, and within here it's going to be our shared, sample data. I'll see, got ahead of myself, dot shared dot model container. Now we can see in our preview it is using all of that sample data that we're using to test our app. In step 2, we're going to be switching back over to the movie list file, and we're going to remove the enclosing navigation split view. Okay, so it should be above our list. And it wants us to also make sure that we're deleting the detail on its closure. Okay, let's do that first. Let's get rid of the brace. And then let's now get rid of our navigation split view here. We can always double check, click on our list, click on our view. Okay, good. Looks like everything is fine and it is compiling. So this says because the filtered list will be the top level view in the tab, we'll move the navigation split view there. Okay, that makes sense. And just to make sure, in step 3, we're going to be ensuring that the movie list preview continues to have navigation bars matching the appear of the actual app. We're going to go to our preview and we're going to be wrapping them in the navigation stack views. So we'll right click on our movie list, embed, navigation stack. And we're going to be doing that for both of our previews. Navigation stack. Perfect. All right, we're hopping back over to our filtered movie list here. And we're going to go ahead and right click our movie list, embed in navigation split view. And we can also add our detail here. So afterwards we can say detail, and we can add our brace. Within here we can add some text. So let's go ahead and select a movie, I guess. And we can add the navigation title, and we can just say this is a movie. And I think we also used the display mode before, and let's set that to be inline. Oh, and for your detail, if you're getting an error like me, it's because you need to add the colon there, because I can't find what detail is, but detail with a colon will work. In step 5, we definitely need to add a property to contain the search text. All right, and we'll be adding a state private variable. So state private var, we'll call this search text, in order to allow the users to kind of have their searches be tracked as a variable. And, you know, when we're using the state, SwiftUI is going to be automatically updating that filtered movie list in order to process and pass that data through. In step 6, we're going to be adding the searchable modifier to let people filter the movie list. After our movie list here, we'll do the dot searchable. Now we can either use the autofill here, or you can type it out. And from here, we're going to be establishing, you know, what that's going to be, which is going to be some text. And we're going to be using the $ for our bindable of search text. Oh, it's not search text, it's search text. Okay, there we go. The spelling mistake has been resolved. And then if we remember before, how are we actually filtering these items? Well, we had our title filter that we were using, and what string value are we going to be using? Well, that's also going to be the search text. Now this doesn't need to be binding because we're essentially just going to be grabbing whatever this variable is at the time. Another reason to use those state variables, right? Next, in step 7, we're going to go to our content view and replace the movie list with the filtered movie list. All right, so let's go to our content view. Movie list is now going to be instead filtered movie list. And it wants us to experiment to make sure everything works as expected. Okay, so let's in our preview click on the movies. We can see here we have our glorious search bar. Let's search for cat. That works as expected. If we search something with just TR, great. And something to also notice is that you're kind of locked into the search bar until you hit cancel, but that's pretty good because you don't want people to be kind of adding things and, you know, instead of just searching. And the cancel makes a lot of sense. Let's make sure we can still add movies. Let's do Minecraft. Save. Let's go ahead and delete it, like these other ones. Sometimes in the preview, you know, you might, like, I find that sometimes it'll like kind of bounce me back. It might be a little bit annoying working in the preview, but we can still verify that adding and deleting things and searching does indeed work. So our app is apparently fully functional. Well done. But now we're going to be giving some instructions to kind of populate the data in section 6 to make it an even better app, right? We have the functionality, but let's improve the user experience a little bit more. And this is going to be adding some useful instructions when the list is empty. Absolutely love that feature. It's like, hey, your list is empty. Let's go ahead and populate that. So what we're going to be doing is navigating to our friends list. And whenever people see the blank screen when they launch the app, remember, we only see this data because it's sample data in the preview for our testing. Users will never, ever see a preview. So we're essentially going to be adding an if statement to track if this is empty or not. Okay, and it wants us to wrap the list specifically in an if-else statement. So I'm going to add an opening brace before the list, double click on the outside of the list here, and then we're going to add a brace. Okay, so now we're going to say if, and then we're going to use our exclamation point to say the opposite. So essentially, if friends dot is empty, we're saying if the friends list isn't empty, display this list. Now we are going to be getting an error because if if is not a SwiftUI view, we can't apply modifiers like the navigation title to it. So instead, we're going to wrap the if statement in a group. So before our if statement, we're going to go ahead and add a group at our brace, and then we're going to go to the end. Again, I love this double kind of click trick on the braces to make sure we're properly wrapping things. Indentation helps, but this really helps make sure that we have everything grouped up, literally in this case. So essentially with the grouping, and there's always a link if you want to learn a little bit more, we can kind of use this if we do have those conditionals, because when we have things that are displaying different views that might be conditional, grouping them together is going to allow us to work with them in SwiftUI. And we can also apply a ton of common modifiers to many views at once. Okay, and we're going to be adding an else statement. So we're going to go to the end of our if statement here, and we're going to say else. We're going to say content unavailable view. And this is something that's one of those like kind of built-in functions that's going to display certain things when there are no friends. So this is really, really handy. You could also just boot to a custom view or display something that you want, but this one saves a lot of time. And we can basically say add friends within the text here. And then we can also display a image or even system image. So let's do system image, and it wants us to do the person dot and dot person. Now, because we can't see this because we have the sample data, let's go ahead and create another preview here. So hashtag preview, and we'll say empty list. Add our brace, friends list. And for this one, for the model container, this is going to be the for friend.self. In memory is going to be true. So let's go ahead and see how this looks like. So we should be able to click on the empty list, and it should have no friends being populated. It is totally empty. We can see here that we have the text prompting people to add friends, and we even have the little image there. All right, let's go ahead and make the same changes to our movie list. So movie list. Okay, and let's go ahead and add our group here, and we'll add our brace. Now, when you do hit return, it is going to create the closing brace, so let's remove it. And we'll do our if movies dot is empty. Make sure you have that exclamation point. Add a brace here. All right, and then let's go ahead and wrap up our list. So double click on the braces, add the two, and then we'll also add our else statement here. See if we can remember what it was. I think that was the content unavailable view, and we had the title, which would be add movies, comma, and then let's do a system image. I think we did film.stack. I'm pretty sure. we can always come back and fix this. And let's add a preview, and we'll call empty movies. Oh, it says in step 6, empty list. So this is going to be a navigation stack. A brace. We have to go to our movie list. And then we'll add our model container for movie, capital M, dot self, in memory, to be true. All right, assuming I didn't forget anything, empty movies, add movies. Oh, okay, film stack. There we go. All right, so now we kind of have all of this logic. Take some time to appreciate the hard work. We kind of built this app over 3 tutorials and we learned so much. Let's really quickly, before we check our understanding, let's make sure that our app works and behaves as expected. And I'm actually going to launch this in the simulator using the iPhone. You can do it on the iPad if you want. Okay, we can see our app here. You know what's most funny is these are the friends that we added before. So just to double check that our view works, I'm going to go ahead and delete both of these. Perfect, add friends. And now when we add a new friend, let's do Steve. Go ahead and save that. Oh, our movie list is empty as well. Hold on. Okay. You know what? Let's add some of the movies first. We'll do Minecraft movie. Go ahead and save that. And let's populate a couple more so we can see our picker in action. See Enderman Revenge. Okay. Now when we add our friends, go ahead and add Steve. Perfect. We can see that we can select the favorite movie and we'll make Steve's favorite movie the Minecraft movie. All right. Now when we go to movies and we click on Minecraft movie, favorited by Steve. Look at that. I don't know, my mouse is this weird kind of resizing thing. Okay, there we go. And let's also make sure that it searches properly. So we put man for the Enderman. Perfect. And you can populate this list as much as you want. But we have created this really amazing application where we have both friends, we have movies, they can kind of talk to each other, and we can see the sorted list, we can search. The search functionality is something that a lot of people were looking forward to, as well as just like that, creating, updating, and deleting data. So you should feel very proud of yourself for making it this far with your application. And now that we've been through the tutorial, what I would suggest doing is also using this kind of sample app. If you are creating any applications that might be using that list feature, that sorting feature, to kind of reference and remember, oh yeah, that's how we did that thing. So make sure you keep this application somewhere on your computer. Okay, let's go ahead and now take the quiz to check our understanding here. All right, how can we establish a relationship in SwiftData from model type A to B? So we can add a relationship, create a class C that contains properties for both of them, or declare property in A of type B. Definitely going to be that answer. We said, hey, and friend, I want you to look at the movies, and in the movies, I want you to look at the friend, and they were able to be a two-way relationship and talk to each other. All right, next question. Which view lets you select one of many options, ideal for setting the value of a one-to-many relationship? So we have picker for each and form. So it's definitely picker. This is where we actually, well, I ended up going with the wheel. You might have chosen something differently. Let's take a look at our friend detail here. So we have the form, which is kind of creating this, structure for us. So wouldn't be that. We then also used, I think it was in the movie detail here. We use the different sections to kind of give it those different titles and kind of break the form down. So we had like the information about the movie, and then we had the section favorited by, but we were able to use the picker and also change the picker style to allow users to change or pick from a list of different options. All right, last question. Which of the following is a true statement about predicates? You can use a predicate to filter certain results in a query. Predicate runs false to indicate that the item should be included in the query, and we can use any Swift code in a predicate. Well, we know that we can't use any Swift code, and we know that we were returning true in order to declare that it should be in a query. So it should be the first one. Absolutely. So we can pass predicate to the filter parameter of query to filter its result. Wonderful. And then there is a article here if you do want to read it in order to reflect on the concept. We talked about relationships, how we can kind of pass and share data if we want to. So we can have the friends talk to the movies and back and forth. We also looked at dynamic queries. The big takeaway from me was definitely the kind of sorting them and then also being able to search the different movies. Maybe in your app, you'll also want a way to search for certain friends if you have a huge list of friends that you kind of want to see, oh, what's Jacob up to? And I have like 100 friends on there. I got to find Jacob. See if you can add a search function there. Now there is a extend your app. Okay, well, let people filter by list name. Hey, that's my suggestion. You could also change the picker style with the dot notation there. You can also add a toggle, right, and things like that. So there's tons of different things. And what's next for us for these videos? Well, we'll be creating the game with logic. Now, I also want to call out on the developer website itself, and I will be making videos about this. I just saw, actually, I was on the plane ride home from a work event, machine learning was added. So after the chapter 4, where we create a little bit of a game, we will be exploring some machine learning, which will be really, really cool. So you can either check those out, or you can wait for the videos if you want a little bit more of a guide and some insights. Otherwise, feel free to play around with your app and feel proud of yourself. This is something that we really were able to kind of make our own. We explored sample data, we explored adding and deleting, searching and filtering. We're going to be pros at dealing with data and having different models talk to each other. So thank you so much for watching. Dream big, code bigger, and we'll see you in the next one.